Hey everybody, my name is Sam Pedro. It's been a few months since I've posted, but I'm back and hopefully I can start making more frequent videos. I've read a lot of books since I've last posted, and so I'm pretty far behind. I want to get reviewing those books and talking about those books. But today, now that we're in 2021, I actually want to talk about 2020 and the books that I read. Specifically, I want to share my 11 favorite books from 2020. That number is kind of arbitrary. I just in trying to narrow down my list, I landed at 11. These 11, and I felt good about calling these 11 my favorite books from 2020. And so in 2020, I read 125 books. It's by far the most books I've ever read in a year. I think the previous high was last year, or I guess 2019, where I read 104 books, so pretty big increase. So today I'm just going to go over the 11 books I loved, my favorites from the year. I haven't decided yet, but in a future video, I might list all 125 books that I read. Just quickly, I don't know if I'll rank them, but just say these are the 125 books I read. But today, let's start with the 11, and there's no order here. I'll just go in the order of when I read them during the year. So book number 1 was The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this book just blew me away. Quickly, it's, I guess, a historical fiction. It takes place in I believe, the 1930s, 1940s, maybe late 1940s. And it's about a butler in England who was the head butler at this great house to a guy named Lord Darlington. And I won't get too much into the book here, but basically it talks about his later end of his life, and he's reflecting on his work as a butler, and it really explores the themes of loyalty and maybe chasing the wrong things in your life. And so reading this book, it just really made me think about what I spend my time doing, what I think is important, and am I missing bigger things I should be spending my time on. It's actually kind of a haunting book, just how this character, this butler, just kind of really misses bigger things in his life because of loyalty and his profession. Anyways, I love this book. I loved it so much I ended up reading it twice in 2020. I even went and watched the motion picture, The Remains of the Day. Loved that as well. So definitely check this one out. This one is one of my favorites of all time, really. Okay, number 2 is Spaceman by Mike Massimino. I think I've talked about this book before, and I know I've written a blog post on my website, samuelpedro.com, about this book. It's just about the astronaut Mike Massimino, and basically he is telling his life story of how he became an astronaut. And as you can imagine, that was not an easy thing to become. And he hit numerous obstacles on his path and his goal to become an astronaut. And he's basically writing about what he did to overcome each obstacle. And, he'd take one step and then another obstacle would present itself. I found this book to be very inspiring. After reading it, I had that feeling that I could do anything. I was pumped up. I read the physical copy, but I also listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Mike Massimino, and I liked that as well. I think he narrated his own book very well. I really like Mike Massimino now. I'm a big fan. I don't know if I have a favorite astronaut list before reading this book, but he's definitely my favorite astronaut now. Okay, number 3 is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. I know I did a video about this one, so I'll just put a link to that one. At a high level, it's Haruki Murakami has been running his whole life as kind of a hobby. He's a writer, and he's basically reflecting on this lifelong hobby of his. And because he's such a great writer, he's able to bring out and reflect deeply on something, maybe as trivial as just a small hobby, something he did every day. But he gives it life, and I was just fascinated by what he talks about as far as running, but also about writing and how running and writing to him intertwined in his life. So go check out What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. Number 4 is Working by Robert A. Caro. This is a really quick memoir about his life. He's one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Power Broker and also the Life of Lyndon B. Johnson series. And in this book, it's just a collection of articles and experiences that he's had with writing and researching these men, Robert Moses and Lyndon B. Johnson, but also kind of talking about his early life and really at a high level talking about his craft of writing, specifically about writing these biographies. Very fascinating. Really liked it. Number 5 is Dune by Frank Herbert. I did do a video about this one. This is a very popular book. It's been a popular book for 40 years, maybe 50 years. I can't remember when it came out. I read through the first 3 books actually of the series. The first one's by far the best. Really liked it. You can go check out my video where I kind of go into more detail about it. But I really liked Dune because I like sci-fi. I hadn't really read sci-fi for a while until I read this book, and it kind of got me excited about sci-fi again. Just a great book. Number 6 is Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This is a heartbreaking book. So Bryan Stevenson is a lawyer who represents his clients. A lot of them are on death row. A lot of them had hard lives. A lot of them are minorities. A lot of them have been wrongfully convicted. But he's sharing pretty much glimpses of his clients, of these men, mostly men who are on death row. A lot of them for crimes they didn't commit or for crimes that really don't fit the sentence of a death penalty. And he goes in and he talks about their lives, kind of what led to that, even from a societal point of view, how a lot of minorities end up on death row, and just kind of the circumstances behind that. And like I mentioned, it's heartbreaking, it's sad. It gives me hope for the world that there are men like Bryan Stevenson who are fighting against this. But yeah, it goes into it. There was a movie. I watched the movie also, which was a follow-up for this book, and it was really good too. But yeah, really, really liked Just Mercy. Definitely worth going and checking out. Number 7 is Endurance by Alfred Lansing. This is a book about Ernest Shackleton and one of his adventures to Antarctica. I did a video about this where I go into more detail about the expedition. This was an exciting book for me. Really one of the most amazing adventure stories, at least that I know of Shackleton going down, and they pretty much get trapped and stuck in ice in Antarctica. And you're looking at a year or 2 of them pretty much missing, but they survive. So this book was just amazing. So I think it was written in the 50s and still holds up well. So go check out my other video and go check out Endurance. Books 8 and 9 are by the same author. It's Alexander Hamilton and Washington by Ron Chernow. I watched Hamilton on Disney Plus in July when it came out. I liked the musical, I liked the music, but I liked going to the source material, which was the book Alexander Hamilton. And that book was just amazing. I can see why it translates well into a great musical, because the life of Alexander Hamilton is just so unique. He was so driven. He accomplished so much, and so I loved the book and learning about him. And after reading that, I wanted to read the book Washington, also by Ron Chernow. I might like that one actually better than Alexander Hamilton. I didn't know much about George Washington, other than kind of the things you learn in school. But getting a deep dive at the man and the character of George Washington, I was just amazed. So I really liked those books. I thought they were well written. For the amount of information that you learn, I didn't think they were that dry either. If you have any interest in American history around the Revolutionary War, I think those are pivotal books to read. Again, Alexander Hamilton and Washington by Ron Chernow. Book number 10 is Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. This is another science fiction book written in the 1950s, but I had a lot of fun with this one. Basically, it tells the story of these aliens that come to Earth. They're called the Overlords, and they come in these spaceships, but they don't really do anything. They influence some politics, I guess, in the United States and in the world, and there's some things they don't allow, but for the most part, they're just kind of there, and nobody really knows why, and that kind of sets the stage of like, what are they doing, why are they here, and then it obviously goes on. But we found it really fascinating. I thought it was really good. I do think this is a landmark of science fiction. You see it on a lot of lists of one of the greatest science fiction books of all time. I had a lot of fun, so go check out Childhood's End. Book number 11 is Antifragile, which was written by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I like his books a lot, but this one was just really amazing to me, pretty eye-opening. Taleb, he's known for kind of going against the grain, having these unique ideas. His most well-known book is The Black Swan. But Antifragile was really interesting, and so it's a book. I feel like it's a book that's hard to summarize in just a quick in the time I have now. But he's basically kind of exploring this idea of fragility. What's the opposite of something that's fragile? So something that's anti-fragile, and it's something, you know, that will, when chaos happens, when stress and stressors happen, this thing will thrive, whether it's a business or a person. And he just kind of builds off of that theme. I actually feel pretty inadequate explaining that, but because it's so good, and I probably should read it again, summarize it better, and make a video solely just for Antifragile. But it's a very interesting book if you want to read something kind of fresh and something that could potentially change your worldview. I think Antifragile is a good candidate of a book to do that for you. So those were my 11 favorite books from 2020. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I think I'll do a video where I just quickly list the 125 books that I read in 2020. I read a lot of great books, and it was hard narrowing it down to just a top 10 or a top 11. But hopefully one of the books I mentioned today, you'll want to go read, and hopefully you'll like it and enjoy it as much as I did. If you did, and you do that, let me know down in the comments below, or in the comments below also let me know what books you want to check out. And I will see you in the next video.